Peace, and welcome to Not Church. This week, again by request, we're looking at a title called Are There Many Heavens, Jesus? John 14:2, sent in by request. It comes around and about because so many people want to know why there are so many near death experience differences and some similarities. So, all these near death experiencers have all these different experiences. What's behind that? And what can Jesus tell us about that? You can send in your requests. I'm Peter Panagore, a two-time near-death experiencer of union, oneness, and a mystical adventurer, a former storytelling TV broadcaster, telling 2-minute original stories of hope and inspiration to 80,000 viewers a day on the early morning news center Maine, TV, and on FM and AM stations for about 15 years. And people just asked me yesterday, what are you? Referring to my spirituality. Are you a Christian? Not really. No. I know the knower knows me. And Not Church is an exploration of mysticism with a Christian accent. No doctrine, no dogma, no Bravo Sierra. Jesus wasn't Christian. Neither am I. I know where I'm from. I know to whom I belong. And I know where I'm going when I die again. I know that none of my incarnated lives that I lived are, were, or will be me. Every moment of this life for the last 40 years, I know and I experience my higher self, my soul, my consciousness as inhabiting this body, this human body. I live inside it. I channel peace with a capital P by grace that surpasses understanding and is experiential. It's not about what I think in my head. It's about what I am in my heart, in my soul. And the message I bring is love and unity for all humanity, no exclusions. I'm one of nearly, 100 million near death experiencers playing my part. This week, again, by request, are there many heavens, Jesus? Why are all NDEs different? And we're going to look, like I said, at John 14:2. So, as we do pretty often, let's begin by centering ourselves. Beginners, later on, you can please take a look at the Meditation Made Easy series video that's in the details below in the description so that you get a better idea of what we're about to do about everybody else. And even if this is your first time here, if you have a meditation practice, this is what we do to begin. So relax, close your eyes, do some belly breathing, chanting on your prayer, on the top of your breath, riding your breath up and down. And whenever your mind wanders, return to your prayer chant. And you can follow my breath if you wish. And if your breath falls away and your mind doesn't wander, as is desired, then follow your breath in focused silence. And then we're going to do 3 chants of Om, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So let's just begin with our meditation. A few breaths together. Now fill your belly and your lungs. We bring peace to our minds and vibration to our body. If you ever experience the living presence, the divine presence among us, within yourself, or between us during not church, let me know in the comments. It's why we're here. So, are there many heavens, Jesus? Why are all NDEs different? Anonymous asked me last week, what does Jesus mean when he said, in my dad's house, it's abundant with mansions? Jesus used relationship metaphors. We have to start with dad or father. So Jesus used relationship metaphors when describing the source of all there is. Now, God isn't a dad or a mom, male or female, but displays relationship attributes of loving and caring moms and dads. And so Jesus used relationship metaphors. So essentially, he said, in my parents' house, there are many mansions, which is kind of an odd thing. I usually figure that mansions are bigger than houses, but in this case, not so much. The house Jesus refers to is the oneness itself, all of heaven, the wholeness of heaven, the infinity unlimited. The many mansions, well, maybe you want to think of them as bespoke worlds, personal dwellings, or custom designed abodes, or personalized heavens, one for each of us. In the Greek, the Koine Greek, the word mansion or abode is monia, a noun, which surprisingly is also a verb. It's a verb and a noun. Monia is an abode, and it's also an abiding. It's an abiding. Abiding is an action taking place in a place. Abiding is an action in a place. Abiding is enduring, steadfast, and continuing without change. Abiding in an abode is what Jesus is saying. Some near death experiencers know about the house, capital H, house, the big house, because some of us were taken into the oneness and saw infinity, witnessed this, the totality of all there is. Now, we all know about the many mansions, about the abundant dwelling places and the abodes, and we know about the action, verb of abiding, of beingness, of existence, as pure soul, as consciousness without attachment to a body, because we experienced our own specially designed and personalized heaven or room or abode. And when I say us, I mean near-death experiencers and those who have been raptured and mystical experience into the divine presence. Each of us knows that we experience an individual, custom, bespoke heaven just for us. And our minds are earth. It's a good analogy because each of our minds on earth, we are in a dwelling place. We live inside our heads. Our brain's capacities in connection with our senses create and govern our perception of the world and our experience of the world. And although much of life on earth is shared, no one hears your thoughts or feels your feelings or tastes with your tongue or feels with your skin or sees the world through your eyes. We are self-contained. No one lived your life or had your experiences. No one has your fingerprints. No one has your iris pattern or your DNA. All these things and more create an individual world inside our heads, inside our bodies. We are similar. Yes, human beings are similar. Our experiences are similar, but each of us experiences this world uniquely. And right now, each of us, alone inside our heads, inhabiting our bodies, we are inside our worldly abode. We are abiding, verb. We are abiding in our private experience of this physical being, our abode. Our external lives are in shared space, in the house of heaven, in the house of the world. is what I meant to say, in the house of the world, which is a heaven. The universe can be considered a heaven. The world inside our heads can be considered a heaven. Yet our internal lives are subjective and private, like an apartment in an apartment house. We share the building, but we live individually. There are many mansions, one house, 7 billion private worlds on this earth. And heaven above, is sort of like that, but infinitely greater. Each one of us having our own custom made place. Yet they're all connected. They're all within the greater house of heaven itself, all as part of oneness. NDEs describe heavens in similar terms. Each near death experiencer or NDE experiences their own heaven in their own room and their own mansion when in heaven. That's why there are so many different types of experiences and why they are similar in so many ways. And yet they are different too, because each one is made specially for us, not so much for our time there, but for our remembrance here. We learn the lessons there that we need to know when we're back here. So far as I can tell, every unique human dies and resurrects after a trip to heaven, gets a custom made experience and a custom made heaven built just for them, just for us. And sometimes NDEs share heaven with other deceased members of their family, or angels, or Jesus, or some other divine person who comes to greet them, to come to greet us. Heaven has many mansions, but it's also a shared space. Each NDE is custom made by goodness, by compassion, by kindness, with a capital G, C, and K, for us. God loves us so much that God gives us heaven experiences that fit us. And they might not be what we expect or what we want, but they are always what we need. And we always grow from them. Each NDE is different from each other NDE. You see this, but all NDEs seem to overlap in some ways. And those of you who watch NDE stories here on YouTube or on the many channels that are here that carry those stories in interviews or just in storytelling, or who read about NDE stories at nerdef.org, and you can see the link below, NDE. You just see the link below. Everybody who sees these videos or who reads about them knows that there are more NDE stories that vary that can be accounted for in any other way. You all know more about this than I do because you read more of them than I do. But commentators ask, why are NDEs so different from each other? Because there are so many rooms, suites, floors, buildings, towers, a city full of abodes, levels, and heavens. This is metaphor. Don't imagine actual buildings, although some people actually see buildings. But even the buildings they see aren't made of the same substance they are here. And each one of those experiences, they're all custom made. Even if it's crowded with other people, other souls. There are not just many mansions and the house of heaven. There are also interconnecting hallways, staircases, public spaces, floors, suites, and elevators, public parks, cities, continents. It's all interrelated. Each experience is individual, but all of them are interrelated. Many heavens, one heaven. Capital H heaven and lots of little h heavens. The closer one gets to the core of infinity, maybe up to the penthouse, the more levels of heaven one passes through. Think Swedenborg. The higher one rises up the elevator, the more layers of soul one sheds. This happened to me. I shed layers as I passed through these levels of heaven. This was after my near death experience during a mystical journey that I was taken on by grace. each level deeper, each level closer, each heaven, each home, each abode better. Okay, I'm going to stop at the metaphor there because it's never really helpful to push metaphors too far. And Jesus went on saying, hey, if it were any different than that, I'd tell you, adding, I go to prepare a place for you. First of all, he says, I'm just telling you the way it is. You might not understand it, you might not like it, but I'm telling you that's how it is, Jesus says. And then he says, I go to prepare a place for you. But what did he mean? Did he change heaven? I don't think so. I think what he means is my going prepares you for the place. My going and my return to life prepares you by showing you that death leads to life, especially for those who love. I make a place ready by getting you ready for the place. I will greet you when you come and welcome you home. I am the pre-existent, the light without name, the I am, the all there is, was, and will be, the Alpha and the Omega, the timeless, the eternal, always welcoming you to your home. In timelessness, your place is always ready. It's always prepared for you. Your bed is already turned down, your room is ready, and there's supper on the table. It's ready for you now. Having been there, I decided long ago that I would spend my life in preparation for going. My place is ready for me, but I'm preparing myself by practicing self-emptying, by making space within me for heaven, within me here and now. And the more light there is inside me now, the easier it is to see my way home. The easier it is for me to see home here. That's what meditation's for. It's what Kriya Yoga is for. It's what any form of interior stripping of yourself, that's what it's for. To bring your home here and to aim your heart toward home. Are there many heavens? Yes. Each one inside the divine self. Each one especially prepared for you, for me, for all of us, bespoke and custom. Don't worry about the differences. Don't be upset that one person's near-death experience is different than another's. Each one is specially designed for you, for that person. And what you learn from it, from your mystical experiences, is meant for you and your wisdom. And all of these homes are contained in one great house. You might think of it as a bunch of balloons, all dropped into a big construction-sized trash bag. And all the balloons are inside together touching, all individual, all related through touching, and all within the one big bag. Each of them a heaven unto themselves, each of them a heaven within the greater heaven. One way to think about it. Another way to think about it are levels like the layers of a geological formation, sedimentary rock, this layer and that layer and that layer, all related, all in the same rock. Think about it as an apartment building, all with these different rooms and elevators and hallways, all one building. Is one apartment better than another? Maybe. But they're all in the same house. They're all one. Like I said, don't push these too far. But let me ask you, what do you do to prepare yourself for this? How do you prepare for your trip home to your heaven, inside the greater heaven? What do you do? I spend time in my meditation and my chanting. I have for 40 years because I know where I'm from and I know where I'm going. I'm going home to the house, to my apartment. So whatever it is you do to prepare, please share your thoughts with the rest of us in the comments because we are all in this together. So share your wisdom, share your knowledge and your practice in the comments below. And I want to thank everyone for being here today. And thanks for spending your time with me this morning. If you ever hear the flow when you're here, let me know in the comments if you feel it. The largest effort of Not Church is to help you feel it inside yourself, to bring that home here, like a buzz between us, like a buzz inside you, together. And Not Church is designed to make you think and feel. And if today's Not Church gives you hope or inspiration, understanding or resonance or some validation, if Not Church supports you, then please support Not Church at panagore.love. This is a group effort. And thanks. And if you need or you want to speak with me by Zoom or phone, please book a 30-minute appointment at panagore.love. So I'm going to take a look at the chat here and see what's going on there. I'm going to change a setting on my computer so I can see that more clearly. Thanks for being here this morning. Nicola, you practice by being in nature. Me too. Thank you, Kristen. I am abiding in the shared space. Hugs to my family. That's how we do it too. We abide in the shared space. Thanks, Christina. Thank you, BE, for your support. Vinci, Willie T, for me, 3 forms of how I perceived souls, including my own. Limitless space, spaces of what we perceive as perfection, heaven. Tiffany, loving everyone, being loved, and helping people always. This is how we practice. Colin, Peter, can you speak to NDE experiences where there is only an experience of hell? Yes, Colin, I think I can. I think that having gone through hell myself, or as Winston Churchill said, when you're going through hell, keep going. I think that the people who only experience hell may not have been there long enough to escape. Every other near-death experiencer I know or have a conversation with who go through hell or a hell of their own making, like I did, were rescued, were pulled out by divine love. It was a cleansing, a divine fire of purgative love. And I think that those who come back to earth before they escape through the divine fire of purgative love, through their cleansing, I think that they just weren't there quite long enough. And that the lesson that they learned for this life, because that's a pretty powerful lesson, changes them and their life. And so the same holds true for them. The heaven that they went to was like a hell. And when they came back here, they lived through the lens of that experience and changed their lives. They become different people as a result. I don't know a single person, or I have not heard a single person who's been through an experience of hell who is the same person they were when they came back. It's an experience of heaven that changes a person. I did not experience hell as an eternal state. And last week we talked about that. Hell is not an eternal state. For me, it was a cleansing. It was a temporary thing. And thank you, Primary Feathers, for your super chat support. I hope that helps, Colin. I'm preparing by working through trauma and practicing love with the least conditions possible, says Carmen. These are all excellent practices of bringing the house of heaven here now. In relationship, listen how this works. It's the relationship to self with a capital S and a small s, and it's the relationship to another. This is all about relationship, how we relate to ourselves and to the divine and to each other. Hi, Marnie. She says hi. Hi, Sarah. You say, I highly recommend Peter for counsel on the phone. Thank you, Sarah. Marnie, being around animals and nature is the closest to heaven here for me. Yeah. I tend to agree with that, which is why I live in a very rural place, because here it's easy to see heaven. It's easy to feel it in nature. Heck, you can do it in New York City in Central Park. You can do it on the West Coast, up on the mountain peaks, or you can do it in any concrete jungle anywhere. If you have plants in your house or a pet, you can learn to love and absorb the life force energy that comes through these other beings, these other nodes of spirituality. And there is a bug on my camera. Oh, it's right on the inside. Oh, well, nothing I can do about that now. Why do you choose? Do you believe that you can choose hell? Why would some choose that? Asked Vicky. I suppose some people can choose hell. I suppose they can choose selflessness. Pardon me, selfishness. I suppose so. But I can't imagine that in the presence of the super self-evident love that is abundance that you could stay there. That's kind of answer to Colin too. The divine self was so self-evidently love that there was overwhelmingly powerful and welcoming, and that I couldn't stay in the selfishnesses that I brought with me. So is someone, I don't want to say strong enough to stay in a hell? I don't know, maybe, but I can't imagine that because the abundance of love, the self-evident abundance of love was just overwhelming. It was like the hell that I was experiencing was a cup full of water in the Niagara Falls. It just got washed down the river of love. Can Thank you, Sarah, for your super chat. Uh, Can one remember and be touched by an NDE from an experience as a newborn baby? Hi, PLR. Yes. And I think you might want to check out PMH Atwater. PMH Atwater. Her most recent book, to my knowledge, is about childhood, including birth, NDEs. And yes, kids who are born and die and live, they don't know what it's like to, I mean, you just know that is your reality. People who die later on, we have a comparison to the life we lived before, but babies who die and who then just come back and live, they are a little different. They're just a little different, and yes, you can't not be touched by an NDE. Once you die, whether you're conscious of it or not, and there are people who die and take a trip and they're not sure whether they went or not, but their lives change. They are transformed. You can't not be touched by a near death experience, whether you know you went or you didn't. The people who die and don't know are often babies, but you can't you can't not be transformed by it. It's just the way it works. So yes, PLR. I would check out PMH Atwater. She writes about it. Arian, Nira TV. I recently deeper knew and saw that I am already who I am. I don't have to do anything or become something or someone. This is so relaxing. Yeah, you don't have to. That's the incredible thing. Yes, meditation helps. It brings heaven here. It opens you up to the divine self, but really, this is just a temporary apartment building that you're living in. It's just not a temporary apartment that you're in right now, and you're already in the I am. You're already made of divine love. It's just hard to perceive here. So there's the whole thing about practicing love, practicing compassion, practicing meditation is to experience that more here and to bring more heaven present to the world. But really, atheists, they got the same thing going on as believers do. The same things going on as knowers do, is that you're already divine love. And so really there's no effort. You can just relax. You don't have to worry about this. You don't. It's all good. It's all been good and it all will be good and all is good and was good. And it's just so much love. Don't worry about it. You're good. You don't have to practice this. It's very relaxing. I have a purpose to my practice, but I don't have to do it, although I'm compelled, which is kind of a contradiction. But I could quit. It wouldn't be comfortable for me, but I could quit. It's easy to see heaven in the woods, says Annie. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Rose, for the super chat. Was your near death experience a form of transformation? Artist Tom. Oh, for sure it was. I became an entirely, well, first of all, when I died, I was stripped of my body with no connection to the physical world whatsoever, like physically connected. No silver cord kind of thing. And that was a transformation back into my true self. And then when I came back to life again, when I asked to come back and came back, I was transformed into an entirely different person. I'm doing this instead of what I would have been doing for the last 40 years. So yes, a transformative experience for sure. 100%, 1,000%, a million. A great book called Old Souls, Vince C. mentions, forgets the author's name, but Old Souls. Thanks, Rose, for the super chat. PLR. Thank you, Peter. That changes so much for me to know this. Yeah, I've met a bunch of, several near death experiencers who were babies, who died when they were babies. And their experience of reality isn't so much transformative because they're already living like this all the time that they've been alive, as it is just spiritually deep. And it's hard for them. A lot of them who don't, most of them don't remember, of course, because they were babies, and there's just not a lot, there's not space in the brain development for that kind of memory, because the brain continues to grow and develop over the lifetime. But they live, they live love, they live transformation, they live this new life, even if they don't understand why they are. Does that make sense? I hope so. Tony, why won't my guardian angel or God or Jesus give me a sign, not the subtle kind where you have to be reason it out and say, well, that could be a sign, but the blatantly obvious kind? Tony, I wish I knew. I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't know why. Some people get signs that are overwhelming. Thank you, PLR, for the super chat. I don't know why people get signs that are overwhelming and other people don't. My spiritual director, Theophane Boyd, God rest, he rests in his apartment in heaven now. He told me spiritually transformative experiences of the extraordinary kind are for the weak. You know, my dad right now, he's not well, and he's been praying for his death for a month, all the time. And I've seen this many times. Lots of people who are elderly people whose lives, the quality of their life has ebbed to from 100% down to about 2 or 3%. And all they want to do is die. And they pray that God takes them, and God doesn't. You know, why is that? It's probably the same kind of reason that's not their time yet, or they don't. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why those prayers don't get answered. It's not because you're bad or unworthy. Mm, I don't know. Keep pursuit. Find the stillness. Instead of looking for signs, here's the thing, instead of looking for signs and wonders, which are the reason why people believed in Jesus. Okay, he's walking around. They didn't believe him because of what he said. They believed him because of the miracles that he performed. That's what the books say. But instead of seeking the signs and wonders, seek the silence inside yourself. Because in the silence inside yourself, when the mind stops flowing with its thoughts and its thinking, there's this place of peace. And in this place of peace, the now, the eternal, the isness is touched. And in this space is where peace begins. So look there. Wish I gave you a better answer, man. I just don't know. Um, Hard to see heaven when your home life is toxic, says Stephanie. Yeah, oh God, yes. I'm so sorry to hear that, Stephanie. If you want to talk about that, I've had lots of experience dealing with domestic violence and domestic abuse. I sat on the state of Maine's domestic violence homicide review panel for about 7 years, reviewing case studies. And previous to that, I worked a lot with domestic violence and abuse situations. And if you want to talk to me about it, we can talk about it. But yeah, I hear you, Stephanie. It's hard to see love when there's abuse all around you, when there's toxicity. I might be able to help with that. Willie T. My brother died in the middle of a paranoid schizophrenic delusion. There's a bunch of For God to untangle. I hope that wasn't too perturbing for my brother. Nah, once the brain is gone, all the baloney that is DNA, all of the illnesses, all of them are gone. They're all physically based and they all vanish. There's nothing to sort out. You don't bring cancer with you to heaven. You don't bring blindness. You don't bring a broken leg. All of that stuff, brain illnesses too. I mean, people call it mental illness. I think I've been leaning toward brain illness so that it's more like a bone illness, a brain illness, not your fault. It's just an illness. It's a disease. It's a genetic problem, whatever it happens to be. But all of those things, everything physical, you shed them the moment you pop out of your body, including your gender, including your self appraisal. All of that stuff just goes away. It's healing beyond your understanding now. It's healing beyond imagination. It's wholeness. It's a return to self. Schizophrenia, any kind of mental illness, there I am again, brain illness, um, physical illness, it all gets stripped away. You don't bring it with you because you don't bring your body. Nothing to sort out. The moment your brother passed on, he was freed of all of that. All of it. Let's see. Thank you, Gail, so much for your super chat. Appreciate that. Does the devil exist? Big question, Jenny. Um, I think I talked about Satan a few weeks ago in when I was talking about the structure of the entire universe. Um, I've talked about demons. Does the devil exist? That's a big question. I think we'll have to cover that another day. Old Souls is about children who remember their past lives, says Vince. Hugs to Stephanie. Hope that hope finds you. Amen to that. Helen, not. Rowan, be the signs that you want to see by blessing everything and all in your life. That's very good. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for sharing that. Be the sign yourself. But how do we talk? Email Stephanie, go to panagore.love and you can book a time with me there. We can talk by phone and we can talk by Zoom. panagore.love. I have lots of experience with domestic abuse. Sadly, it's not personal, like fortunately for me, but lots of it up close and personal in my neighborhood and my jobs and my life and my work. Willie T, very encouraging to hear. Yeah. I wasn't dyslexic when I was dead. I didn't have any ADHD. I didn't have any allergies, no asthma, no nothing. None of my ailments came with me. They were all gone. I was so much better when I was dead. So true, Peter. We only have to notice the silence. We don't have to stay in it. Right. Noticing the silence as often as we can is so much easier than trying to stay in it. Yes. And it builds. It builds all the time. It's an amazing thing, this silence. The more you touch into the silence, and it's only a touching. For me, it's still only a touching. I don't reside in the silence. I can move my mind into not thinking more readily because I've trained my head. But it's always a dipping into the silence that leaves a residual, like a resonance of quietude inside yourself that grows in size. The piece becomes bigger and bigger through touching it again and again. Thank you, Tiffany, for your super chat. Brain illness, Pascal. Yeah, I'm trying to see, you heard me trying to shift my language around that. I'm also indoctrinated into mental illness, but these are brain illnesses. It's not mental. It's like a bone illness. Thank you, Pascal. And it's the other language I'm trying to shift for myself is commit suicide. People don't commit suicide. That's a legal term to commit a crime. Suicide is not a crime. It's lots of things, but it's not that. Same kind of deal. I'm trying to shift my language around that. I'm trying to shift my language around brain illness. Not so easy when you've been talking about it your whole life. I loved your UFO interview. Thanks, Stardust. That was wicked fun. So fascinated to hear it was in Ohio. It was. It was in Perrysburg, Ohio. I don't know if I mentioned Perrysburg, but that's where I was. I did an interview a week ago with Jeff Mara, Jeff Mara's wonderful channel, the Jeff Mara channel, where he does lots of near-death experience and other types of interviews. And he talked to me about how in 1977 I chased a UFO in a car for many, many miles with a bunch of buddies. And I watched this craft do things that we human beings have no idea how to uh, create the physics for. And I'll just give you silence, no visible means of propulsion, staying absolutely still and moving to beyond the speed of light in an instant and making right angle turns at super high speeds, for example. Um, my go-to is gratitude, not to sound too Pollyanna-ish. When it seems unfair or overwhelming, I think instead, thank you for this opportunity to practice kindness, Wanda. That's not Pollyanna-ish. That's heartful compassion. That's as David Ulrich, our friend, often says, and when he feels, putting words in his mouth, when he feels anger, he brings love with intention to the situation. It's a helpful thing. But people who are in abusive situations, that's a different story. We need to talk about that. Um, you can still bring love to the situation, but you don't have to stay there. You don't need to stay in an abusive situation. Okay. You don't need to get hurt. Even the bug on your camera lens enjoyed this not church, not sermon. Yeah, I don't know what to call these. Are these sermons or not sermons? I'm not sure what to call them, but thank you. Not church and not sermon. You're my glue brother. Your purpose is truly evident. Love you, Peter. Thank you, Vince. Always a pleasure, Vince. Yes, you did, says Stardust. Rose, as my nephew just passed by suicide this week, it is calming to shift the message. Yes, Rose. Uh, yeah, it's not a commitment, not a committal. What am I saying? He didn't commit a crime. Suicide, as far as I can tell, is a result of despair, of despondent despair, of hopelessness. Depression can lead to it, but despair is a human experience of tragedy, of tragic proportions. I've had experiences with people who've lost relatives to suicide. And although it's very hurtful for those who remain, as I'm sure you experience now, as I have experienced in my life, it's not a sin. It doesn't condemn you to hell because it's an ailment, it's an illness of the brain. And the people, let me put it this way, about 4 years ago, I did a funeral in my town. There might have been 1,000, and this is not an exaggeration. 1,000 people showed up for this young man. He was a veteran of Afghanistan and a well-loved kid. He'd been on my baseball team. I wasn't the coach. I was kind of the assistant coach of this little league team when my son played ball, and I knew Nick well. He took his life, and I asked the crowd, "Who here has been visited by Nick?" And his ex-girlfriend from like 7th grade said that she'd been visited by him post-mortem, after-death communication, and that Nick was sorry that he had taken his life. He had been on a medicine whose name I won't mention, that has a causal relationship with suicide, or measured. I've been reading. But in any case, he was in heaven. He was in a heaven of love. He was fine. That's all I want to say about that. He was fine. Your nephew's fine. My nephew just passed Let's see. Attend Bowling Green State U. Oh, I've been to Bowling Green. We used to drive to BU to Bowling Green to go drinking at the bars when we were 18, even though we were underage. We could get 3.2 beer, a 3.2 beer. Lived in Toledo, drove through Maumee and Perrysburg lots and lots of times. So, Kristen, uh, there's this park, or there was this park near the Divine Word School. The camp was at the Divine Word School. It's a Catholic school. In the summertime, it was a camp, but that's where it was. That's where it happened. Um, Love and light, Manuel says. Yeah, that's bring love and light where you are. We've got about 15 minutes left here, people. I appreciate your message about suicide very much. Thank you. You're welcome, Stardust. Um, Manuel, master number. I don't know what that means, my brother. Um, Vicky, my brother ended his life last March, but so far I haven't heard any words that make me feel better. I keep going within looking for comfort. It changes daily. Yeah, because one of the things about suicide is that it takes the internal despair and pain and gives everybody who lives afterwards a piece of it. And that's the hardest thing about suicide is that we all suffer. We who stay behind, we suffer. My cousin 2 years ago took his life in a most horrible way, the most horrible way I think I'd ever heard of. And it still hurts. And I'm a mystic. I've been to heaven, and it still hurts. I still miss him, even though I know he's well. It still hurts. Well, I hope that you find some peace, Vicky. I hope that you find some peace inside yourself. I hope that he comes to visit you or some family member someday, sometime. The Bruce Grayson, I think it is, the NDE researcher. I think it's Bruce. It might have been Marjorie Woolacott, another NDE researcher, but one of them, somebody said that there's a year after a suicide or a death is the most common time for an after death communication. So I hope so. But sometimes it comes later. My sister visited my parents, my mom, uh, 5 years after she died, something like that. Not church chats. Heart. Oh, thank you. I love these not church chats, Marnie. I am not ashamed to admit my ND was out of a suicide, a successful. Yes, I suppose it was successful. Suicide attempt after the worst emotional trauma of my life. We don't get thrown into a pit of fire, quite the opposite. Whoa, yes, Vince. Yes, just the opposite. Thank you for sharing that first hand experience of love after suicide. Yay. Thank you, Vince. Hello, Haran. Hi, I'm from the United Kingdom and on a spiritual journey. Welcome, Haran. We are an open community of mystics, people who are seeking the divine, based primarily in this church, this not church, because of my near-death experiences and my exploration of spirituality. But we are a collective. Everybody here who's had a mystical experience brings wisdom with them. That's what makes this whole thing work. Welcome, Haran. Carmen. Good description. Suicide gives everybody left behind a piece of their hopelessness and despair. Yeah, it is. That's the problem with it. That's the trouble with it. It's very hurtful. But uh, I don't encourage suicide. That's not about what I'm about to say. But I understand why despair leads to death. Just the same way I understand why pneumonia leads to death for some people. It's understandable. I'm angry, so I doubt he could get through. Thank you, Petey. Petey, that's that's cute. Of course, mm, I don't think anger can prevent him. I don't know. Maybe it does, but love is so much greater. And of this crowd of 1,000 people, Nick only came to one, and it wasn't even the wife. It was the ex-girlfriend. Who knows why? Maybe she's more sensitive. Maybe there is a sensitivity. Maybe there's a veil that they can't pass through. That's outside of my knowledge. But I pray, Vicky, that he comes to visit, if not you, then somebody. And that message gets to you. Sarah, I was visited by my friend Mike, who died by suicide. And I was able to share this with his mother, and she was very pleased to hear what happened. He was happy and he was smiling and full of love. Yes, yes. Peter. Oh, that's all right, Vicky. Peter, not PD, but because PD was my first nickname. Okay, when I was a little tiny baby, I was called PD. Now you know. Okay, I don't. Just move on. I'm going to move on. Okay. Escape from church seems about right. Yeah, primary feathers. Escape from church. That's what we're trying to do here at Not Church. We're trying to decolonize minds and deprogram and deconstruct so that there's space for the light itself. Let's see. Start us at Sarah Thompson. Excellent. Haran, I'm interested in finding God and knowing what it is. Dolores Cannon said this universe came from source energy which exploded. Would you mind explaining? Yeah, well, that reflects a little bit. I can talk about that. That reflects the whole Big Bang theory um, of physics. The universe is an outpouring, a reduction, a limiting of a manifesting of the unmanifested, a limiting from the unlimited. It's a gosh, I've got a video on this. I wish I knew the name of the videos that I make, but I don't know the names of them. But yes, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about this. Source energy pervades all things that there is, all things that there are, all things in the universe, sort of like a Higgs boson field of or a quantum field, sustaining, these are all metaphors, sustaining all matter and energy, manifesting itself in the world as a reduced, how am I trying to say this? As a reduction of itself. Um, if you're looking for God, Haran, it's right here. It's right inside you in the silence. It's right there. And the only thing that stands between me and the divine is me. I'm in my own way. And when I move myself out of the way, I find the space of peace inside myself. I open myself up not only to the divine presence, but I open myself up to the divine flow that is between us. Um, if I could find the name of that video, if anybody remembers it, we could post it up here. But Haran, it's a very big question, and I have answered it, and I can explain it. Tell us about your books. Oh, okay. This is my international Audible best-selling book, Heaven is Beautiful, and I'm working with a couple of really great producers in Hollywood. I've been working with them for more than a year now to make a film out of it. They're talking big budget, and it's going well so far. This is my other book. This is a collection of devotional stories from my television show that I had for 15 years. I wrote 1,700 original scripts. I had 2 minutes every morning, and to bring inspiration and hope. And this is a daily devotion, a 365 daily devotion, non-sectarian, um, non-denominational, interfaith, near-death experience book of hope and inspiration that help you get through every single day for a whole year. And all of it's available at Amazon. Thank you very much for asking. I got 5 minutes here and I'm going to take a break. Is source energy all powerful and all knowing? Yes. All powerful, all knowing, and so much more. Hey, Haran, if you have time, there's a Zoom link below. There's a Zoom link below, everybody, for Mystic Tea Salon. And I put it in this week. It's at the top of the hour in about 5 minutes. Come and join us. It's a conversation about mysticism. We can cover more of this stuff in detail. I'm also going to be trying to be more conscious with my words and not commit suicide, for example. Yeah, it's tough to relearn language, but language creates the reality in which we live. So it's helpful. It's helpful. I'm trying the same thing. It's not easy. My fiance died when I was very angry and upset. Long story, but he came and held my hand and walked with me and shared with me a sense of humor. Tiffany, beautiful, beautiful. I hope that was healing for you. I'm sure it was. I miss Daily Devotions so much. Oh, thanks, PLR. Me too. It was a great gig. That was the name of the TV spot. It was branded as Daily Devotions, 2 minutes in the morning. Thanks. It was well. I was the pastor, the inspirational pastor of giving hope for the state of Maine and New Hampshire. It was a good gig. All right, my friends, I got to go. Um, oh, yeah, David Glusker. What a great guy. He was my predecessor on the TV show. And I was the fifth one. The program was 91 years old. It was the oldest and longest religious broadcast in the world when it closed a few years ago. All the same particle of light and matter. Uh-huh. In 5 minutes, there'll be a Zoom session. That's good because I have a few questions about source energy. I'll see you there, Haran. I'll see you then. I've got 4 minutes. I've got to take a little break here. So peace and love, everybody. Thanks for being here. Let me know what you think of this show in the comments. Like and subscribe. Tell me if you have um, requests about what you want me to cover. Primarily, I work in the Bible because I have a background in that, but I am a mystic. And as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not a believer. Okay. You know that. I am a knower of the divine self that is beyond comprehension. I will see you soon. Namaste. Peace and love. Talk to you in a couple of minutes at Zoom. Links below.